Students, this week we are going to be talking about listening. So please make sure that you have read Chapter 5 in your Learn 11 e-textbook before you watch this lecture. So the first thing that I want to talk about is some problems with listening and concentrating. And how can we be better listeners? We first need to identify what our issues are with listening and concentrating. And so the first problem is pseudo listening. And the word pseudo, or the root pseudo, means false or fake, meaning that you are pretending to listen. And I really like this cartoon here. There is a man reading a newspaper and a wife who looks really angry, and she says, you can stop saying, uh-huh, I stopped talking to you an hour ago, right? Maybe some of us have found ourselves in that situation where someone is talking to us, but we're not really processing what they're saying. And so we just kind of blindly nod our heads and we start thinking about other things. And so we lose concentration on what that person is talking about. Maybe you're doing pseudo listening when you are listening to your online lectures. You have other things that are distracting you, like your phone, maybe, or, other things going on around you, and you are pseudo listening. So that might be a problem that you have with listening that is making you lose concentration. The next problem with listening is selective listening. And this is listening to what you want to hear and tuning out the rest. Now, some people, get a bad rap for this, for their selective listening. Some of you already know that you're selective listeners, or you have partners who are selective listeners. And I like this cartoon. It says, it's a special hearing aid. It filters out criticism and amplifies compliments, right? So when you are listening to a lecture, are you only hearing the things that you want to hear and tuning out the rest, right? Or even if you are in a conversation with someone, maybe you're doing a discussion with someone, you're doing group work, right? And they are talking, and you're only hearing the things that you want to hear. You don't want to hear any criticism, right? You don't want to hear things that are going to make you feel bad, right? Or challenge you or something like that. Some of us are like that. And so we just have to be aware that we are selective listeners, and that is causing problems with listening and concentration. Next is critical listening. And this is when you criticize the listener. So, critical listening is not like critical thinking. This is something negative. And so maybe, you're listening to a lecture of an instructor that you don't particularly like, or you are sitting in a class with an instructor that you don't particularly like, and you can't find anything good out of what they're saying because you, for whatever reason, don't like that person, right? And this can really hinder your ability to absorb and retain the information that is being presented to you. So if you start off with the attitude that you don't like this person, they don't have anything good to say, that can affect your concentration. So, how do we improve our listening? And this is covered very well in our textbook. So, make sure that you read your textbook thoroughly this week. First, we need to be physically and mentally ready to listen, right? We shouldn't be listening to a lecture, an online lecture, when we're exhausted and about to fall asleep. Right? We shouldn't be listening to a lecture where our mind isn't really there. We know that we're distracted by other things. Maybe if you have children, your children are running around and they need you, right? That's probably not a great mental space to be in to listen to your lectures. It's also important that you are preparing for class and keeping up with your readings. That's why I tell you guys at the beginning of all of these lectures to make sure that you have already read the chapter. Because a lot of times your instructors will emphasize things from your reading that are going to be important to you in your assignments or your quizzes or your exams. Okay, so make sure that you are keeping up with your work because then you'll be able to go, oh, I remember that from my reading. Okay. Also, look and listen for cues. Um, sometimes I'll say things like, you may want to write this down for later. You might want to remember this. This is going to be important for your quiz or things like that. Sometimes instructors will do that. Maybe they'll repeat themselves multiple times. Maybe if you're an auditory learner, we learned about our learning preferences. If you're an auditory learner, you can hear in someone's voice. When they are emphasizing something that's really important. Maybe their volume increases, right? And they start to talk a little bit faster. Maybe that means that it's important. Also, listen for what isn't said. Right? If you are keeping up with your readings and your instructor doesn't cover something in the lecture that you read, maybe that is a note to you that that's a detail that you don't need to necessarily remember for your exam. Okay. Also, please make sure that you are participating, whether it's in an online format or an in person format. Um, Engaging with the material is the best way to learn. Okay. So making sure that you are engaging with your classmates in discussion boards or discussions in person, asking questions, those types of things. Okay. Also try to resist distractions. Turn off your phone, put it in a different room, right? Give it to someone in your household who can hold on to your phone for you while you're listening to a 15-minute lecture, right? That's about how long our lectures are here. 15 minutes, you can go 15 minutes without your phone. Okay, if you're in person classes, which some of you are, sit in the front. Right? I know that when I took some in person classes during my undergraduate degree, I would prefer to sit in the back, but then I would get so distracted by what everyone else was doing on their computers, right? Some people were watching YouTube, some people were scrolling Pinterest, they had their Netflix show on. Because I'm a visual learner, I knew that that was a distraction for me, right? So sit towards the front if you're in an in-person environment. Okay, so how do we watch and listen for instructor cues? Okay, so listen for your instructor's voice. Are they getting louder? Are they getting quieter? Right? What's their tone? Do they pause? Right? So that they want you to be like, hey, pay attention to me. I'm about to say something important. Do they give specific examples? Usually, if an instructor is giving you examples, it's a concept that they want you to be able to relate to and store in your memory. And so they're trying to make comparisons for you. Repeating information, right? If an instructor repeats information multiple times, you know that it's going to be important. And often, instructors will use direct statements. This is going to be on your test. You need to know this for your quiz. You will need to understand this in order to complete this assignment. Okay. Also, watch for their body language. Obviously, this is a lot easier in an in person environment. Are they leaning towards you? Um, are they leaning in to their computer screen, right? Sometimes if you get to see a video of your instructor in an online format, they'll do something like that. Okay, are they writing on the whiteboard, right? If you're in an in-person class, that's usually a sign that this is something that you need to remember. They want you to see it visually too. And are they giving you activities and assignments to go along with the material? If that is the case, that means they want you to practice it because they want you to remember it. Okay, so what is the difference between listening and hearing? This is your assignment for this week. Okay, you're going to answer some questions on listening versus hearing. Okay, So we talked about pseudo listening, critical listening, selective listening, right? When you're hearing something, those are more hearing, right? Rather than listening, because there's no choice really involved. It's kind of in one ear, out the other, right? But listening is truly a whole body effort. Okay, listening and concentrating is a whole body effort. So use this acronym SLANT. Sit up straight, lean forward, ask questions, nod your head, and track the speaker, right? Even if you're in an online format, you need to do these things while you are watching your lectures, because I guarantee you that you are making the active effort to concentrate. Your listening is, you're going to be able to listen more. You're going to be able to retain more information. Okay. So we're doing listening now so that we can prepare for note taking. We have to learn how to be good listeners in order to be good note takers. Okay. So that will be coming up, so you guys know kind of what to expect in future modules. For this week, you will answer some questions on listening versus hearing.